car, it decreased the time that one car could be made in and went from 12 hours to less than 2 days. So with all of these cars being made, more people were buying them, and more money was coming into the community.
Yeah, Christian.
Hey, Blake. And so it was a new job that they could do, which was working in for newspapers.
Imagine combing your hair with a public comb, waiting outside in the cold for dinner, being provided with no utensils to eat with, getting soap only once a week, having your clothes taken away, being drowned in an icy bathtub, being locked in a burning cell. I have written many articles. 7 Days in the Madhouse, The Girls Who Made Boxes, and Why Don't Women Reform? And I have gone by many names: Emily Cochran, Nellie Brown, and most notably, Nellie Bly. And through all of this, I've seen one thing: inequality. It all started in 1887 when I embarked upon an adventure, getting myself committed to the mental institution in Blackwell. I was sent to investigate the actions that took place there, and whilst there I spoke to everyone I could. One woman, Mrs. Coster, was one who demonstrated Blackwell's wrath thoroughly. She told me speaking to a man got her sent to be punished, and there she described it as, "For crying, the nurses beat me with a broom handle, jumped on me, injuring me internally so that I will never get over it." Other tortures she spoke to me about were how they tied her hands and feet, throwing a sheet over her head, twisted it tightly around her throat so she could not scream, and thus put her in a bathtub filled with cold water. They held her under until she gave up every hope and became senseless. And I was one that had to blend in with these insane, transforming into those that were called crazy, having to hold my breath to make it beat as an insane person. I could be punished by those who don't care and tortured by the white-capped nurses who did their best to hide what they did from the public. Immigrants were forced to go here because of the simple fact they could not speak English. The immigrants subject to the same torture as the mentally insane. The unfairness of this whole situation baffled me. And after 10 days, I finally got to write. Freeing myself from the madhouse, I documented my entire experience onto paper, publishing 2 articles that got published in the New York World. And the most rewarding part was the change that occurred. There was an investigation into Blackwell, and the horror I saw was now being seen by the public. I began to see the power I possessed, the one that helped inequality transform. And I continued to be fueled by writing. I think that this is what we all should be doing. Too many people just sit back and watch what is happening and don't say anything, even when they have the ability to make a change. And I myself have been one to struggle with change. As a woman, I strive to fix inequality, not only because it is unfair, because I know what it feels like. At age 16, I began to see the flaws in society, how inequality affects me. There was an article published in the Pittsburgh Dispatch called "What Girls Are Good For," which labeled women as uneducated housekeepers. We were degraded as humans to be essentially like the crust of the bread. Holds the bread together, but nobody really values it as much. I feel that it is ludicrous that we as women shouldn't have a voice. Why should I not speak out when there is so much injustice in the world? Why should I sit back and let others do the work for me because I am a woman? I could not let this article escape me. I collected all my thoughts into a letter and I sent it to the editor of the newspaper. I inspired him as well. He was able to allow me to become a journalist for his newspaper and give me the outlet I needed to portray my thoughts. This was my first chance to take a stand for women and not just write about fashion or cooking. I was changing opinion and taking a stand. All social groups deserve to have a voice. We shouldn't have unequal treatment because of who we are. Another group I've seen inequality within is working class women. I chose to take a job in this profession as a paper box factory girl, reporting similarly as I did when I was in Blackwell. Here I questioned everyone I saw, learning the sad truth of how abused these girls were. Working 12 to 16-hour days, the girls can make a maximum of $6 a week. Also, I was exposed to the men seeking to take advantage of these poor women, flirting with them and offering places for them to live that were not safe. These conditions also inspired me to write. As fingers hit the typewriter, I knew
Take a moment. Think back about your life just 10 years ago. Now tell me, is your life better off now than it was back then? In the 1880s, most Americans lived in substandard homes surrounded by poverty and filth. In just this past decade, America's seen vast increases in the standard of living, along with many ingenious inventions that have benefited your lives. Now I ask you, who aided in these advancements? I surely know that it wasn't any of the peasants that you may find at this fair, most of which are here to merely seek pity and sympathy. No, it was none of them. It was me, John D. Rockefeller, the king of the oil industry and envisionist of the American people. While most laborers make me out to be a greedy, nasty, and ruthless robber baron, I'm actually just like many of you. I came from humble beginnings. In fact, I was born into a large family, and I had to work many hours just to put food on the table. However, I'm here to tell you that you may get wealthier than you can ever imagine in a capitalist nation such as this. I will not lie to you people. Achieving success is not easy. You must be willing to take risks and fight for your share of the pie. I started my career in business by aiding my friend in his food distributing company. That was until 1863 when my idealism led to a massive change in our corporation. At the time before oil, there was no true source of energy to run the machines, locomotives, and automobiles that were becoming a fundamental part of our society. I realized how important oil would be to the future expansion of the nation. Therefore, I was able to convince my partner to ditch the food distribution business in favor of the oil industry, upon which the nation would benefit from us. Upon entering the oil market, it was evident that we had to make our product as cheap as we could in order to not go bankrupt as many other companies had. Striving to keep the price of oil below that of our competitors, we used barrels that my company had made instead of buying ours from others. I made a deal with the Southern Improvement Company, which allowed me to transport my oil in their trains for 50% of what my competitors had to pay. All of this hard work is starting to pay off as I bought out my partner to hold the majority stake in my company. I changed the name of the corporation to Standard Oil, a name that would become a household product to every American. As the years progressed, I started buying out other companies in order to expand my own. These risky purchases paid off as I owned 22 out of the 26 refineries in Ohio by the year 1874. At the turn of the 20th century, nearly every person in the nation used my oil for their homes and businesses. By 1897, my company, Standard Oil, was refining 90% of all the oil in the United States. Some critics, like Ida Tarbell, might describe my business dealings in unflattering ways. Many believe that I made all of these cutthroat decisions because I was a money and power-hungry businessman. While I may have acquired $340 billion, I never did lose sight of my humble rags-to-riches story. Therefore, in the later years of my life, I gave back millions of dollars to educational, religious, and scientific causes because I realized that the money I earned should benefit more than just myself. Maybe some of you standing in the crowd have the same desire as I to please the people of this nation. If I were to offer you one piece of advice, it would be to find the void in others' lives and find a way to fill it for the greater good. I started this journey with the simple goal of trying to make each and every one of your lives better. So now I ask you, has my hard work paid off? Are you better off than you were just 10 years ago?
Questions for Mr. Rockefeller? Now that you've heard his side of the story.
What an inquisitive group.
So the government didn't do anything to stop you from controlling 90% of the oil industry?
So in the later years of my business, Teddy Roosevelt, along with other members of the government, tried to break up my monopoly with lawsuits. But in the later years, in the late 1900s, the companies, my company, broke into smaller parts and then regained back together to form ExxonMobil that we have today. So all of their hard work really didn't benefit their cause because my oil came back.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How is it possible to make $340 billion?
So a lot of it, I just bought out all the other companies that had oil, and I ran them out of bankruptcy at times, just like buy their stocks at really rock bottom prices, and I just owned almost all of the oil in the nation at the time.
How is that possible? Because like, I don't know, I looked the other day and some guy just got $200 billion. That's the first.
So it was a conversion from the time period. It was actually $356 million, but that converts to today's money, $340 billion.
Wow. Okay. All right, we got a couple more questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, I challenge one of you out here in this audience to challenge me, Annie Oakley, to a sharpshooting contest. If you beat me in the match, I will give you $100 in cash. I will take you on after I talk about my thoughts about life in America in the turn of the 20th century, on how women should be treated fairly and closely to males. Mostly saying women should be earning equal pay as men and carrying guns to protect themselves. Why do I think it's important? Because when I first began shooting, it was for putting food on the table at home for my family. My father had died when I was 6 years old, and when my mother couldn't take care of me anymore, she sent me to an abusive foster family at Dark County Infirmary. I became a servant in some sorts, helping with a baby and chores around the family's farm. With such a nightmare of a childhood, I had picked up a gun. You may think I'm scary like a killer, but really, I'm just a person trying to sharpshoot. When I had gotten my first gun, boy was I excited. I deserved this gun because I had to hunt and trap food for my family, as I said before. I could shoot quail and pheasants in the head, keeping the edible portions of the bird entirely free of buckshot. I sold my game to locals in Greenville, Ohio, with hotels and restaurants in the area, building up my reputation. To present myself as an entertainer, I continued to show my feminine side, which was very important to me. I wouldn't wear no cuff jeans. I wore a skirt that I usually sewn myself. Ladies should always be covered from head to toe, but be able to do what men do. After reading in many newspapers about a woman that was pretending to be me stealing cocaine, caused me to sue many newspaper companies. People believed that what they read and not what they heard from my own voice. I had won 54 out of 55 lawsuits, winning a grand amount of money. I started to become so successful that I, 15 years old, was going against Francis Butler, who was another famous sharpshooter. Bets were being placed all around on us, on who would win in a sharpshooting contest. Little did I know that I would beat him, me, a girl, on his 25th shot that he missed. Francis's performance partner became ill, so he started making me his main act. The more and more we performed together led us to start a courtship, which then led falling in love and getting married. People disapproved of me, a woman, being in such high-class act that only men should be able to do. But those people were proven wrong. Knowing you can't judge a book by its cover, many people did, but little did they know I became the Princess of the West, having a huge role in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. With that role, I was becoming a huge celebrity. I was earning so much money, more than the other male sharpshooters. I was traveling everywhere on tours. I trained women during World War I to sharpshoot, but of course, Woodrow Wilson did not approve. I did it anyway. I had proven that a woman can move up from rags to riches. If they work hard enough, I feel the bottom line is that women can work as hard as men.
Success. You believe that this land, America, is one of opportunity and riches. For those of you who have not discovered this already, the success will not come easily. In this land, you must work hard to earn your success. There are hardships, times where one would give up. Only the strongest will survive. Why do you turn from me? Do you believe that I do not know such hardships? Do you think that I, Max Blanc, reached my position by a stroke of luck? I came here as a Jewish immigrant from Russia. I had no friends, no family, no help. I started in a sweatshop, and I walked home each day knowing that I could make a living for myself beyond that of a common worker. I took a risk. Knowing what I had learned from the sweatshop about designs and fashions, I became a garment contractor, acquiring cloth from large manufacturers and making blouses for money. While this did not make a large amount of money, it made enough for me to start my own business. For partnering with Isaac Harris, we founded the Triangle Waste Company. Once our company was off the ground, I started to see the possibility of a better life. However, I was met with competition, and as the Diamond Waste Company continually made product at a lower price, I realized that I had to make big changes. I cut the budget and made work days longer. I saved money where I could, and I personally talked to stores that carried our product to negotiate deals. And as competition improved, so did the Triangle Waste Company. We made more shirtwaists, cheaper shirtwaists, and sold them around our region. Our establishment in New York City grew to be our largest, producing over 1,000 shirtwaists a day. Now, after becoming a shirtwaist king, I go to my office on the 10th floor of the Ash building and tell myself, I've done it. Now I can live a good life. Now my children won't have to live the life that I did. Yet as hard as I've tried to get here, it seems my success is always at risk of falling apart. There are people that insist that I must give my workers shorter hours and more pay. They want a union. A union! It would control my company. They do not understand the kind of pledge that this company rests upon. If the prices of our shirtwaists raise even 10 cents above those of the Rosen Brothers Shirtwaist Company, we'll lose half our customers. But I will preserve our standing. With determination, I will grasp my success. And with determination,
poverty and poorness. I mean, there still is today, but it's not as enough, obviously. It's not like, you know what I mean, like, it's not like at that now. And I'd say like back then it was like really like just depressing. It was just terrible and everybody like wanted to die. But now everybody's a lot happier and the emotion in the air is a lot better.
Tim, what do you think?
well, I was thinking that there's a lot of difference in the sort of regulations and rules that have been put in place since then. Back then it was all about like competition, who could make the cheapest product and who could make the most product. And it, now that there are all the sort of things like minimum wage and like limited hours and that kind of stuff, it means that they're like everyone's sort of limited differently, and now like work conditions are safer, and everyone's on a more level playing field.
Thank you. Other question? Oh, we got some more. Oh, there's a question. Go ahead.
How did the assembly line change the 1900s?
Can we kill that one? Do we have any board in here? Yeah. He asked very simple, how did the assembly line change? And that was the basic gist.
You mean like in factories?
Factories and general. You want to feel that one?
I mean, it definitely sped stuff up. It wasn't as manpower anymore. I mean, all the like electricity and the technology obviously made production a lot easier. So I'd say from then to now, just like looking back, I probably sped stuff up a lot.
Other thoughts on that?
I'd say it also meant that workers needed a lot less skills, so it was a lot easier to replace workers, and that made it easier to treat them worse.
Do you remember this is prior to any kind of minimum wage, any kind of set OSHA / working conditions, so people could do whatever they want. Some of the owners were good, but not all of them. Yeah, because we studied a little bit of the meatpacking industry. You want to talk about that? Yeah, thank you.
I worked in a meat factory. It was a lot of work. It was like really hard because the manager kept coming in and saying we need to work faster because the demands were going faster, so more people were getting hurt. It was a very dangerous job because you were working with a big knife and you had to go as fast as you could just to trim all the meat off the
And did they care if like somebody got injured?
No, they just let you go if you got injured. They didn't pay for anything, they didn't help you if you got injured. You had to like basically, if you got injured, you were all alone.
It was very difficult to replace workers back then because everybody was at their job. And as soon as someone, I mean, I know the book I wrote said that there were a lot of people who worked into construction just literally fell off the building and then there was someone waiting to just take their job.
Yeah, and they didn't like give you workers' comp. Certainly not that case. There wasn't any kind of insurance for the loss of life, so the families had to suffer. Certainly in terms of the working conditions at the time, it was really pretty horrible because, like, in the meat, they would like, if somebody would fall into the vat of like stewing meat, they just keep going. The humans, people lose parts of their bodies and just keep going, rats, everything. There was no regulation about our food back then as well, so something to think about. Like, we don't worry about eating food, but back then you get sick from the food that you would eat because it wasn't taken care of. Yeah.
Like my family, when we found out what actually went into the meat, we stopped eating it. Like it was, we did not want to get sick.
Yeah, because what did they put in it? Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Question.
What were some of the things that were in before?
Yeah, what are some of the, how were women treated differently back then? Yes, thank you.
Women could not be independently wealthy. You would either have to marry a rich man, or if you were a man, you could just be a businessman and like invest in stocks, but women were not as commonly seen doing that, and they also weren't as commonly seen in the workplace. So you'd see men working, but over time the women got more involved, and that's what started the equality.
What things could women didn't have a right to do? Yes,
They couldn't vote.
they couldn't vote at all. Keep that in mind. Turn century women were not voting. They couldn't own land. They could not get a divorce from the husband. They were the property of the husband still at this point in time, which I find kind of intriguing. Women had absolutely really no rights at all. They couldn't choose any professions that they wanted, unlike you guys today. Anything else to that? That's a great question. Thank you. Other question? Yes, thank you.
Well, it was assumed that there was like a man of the house that was providing the money, which meant that there was sort of this excuse that women weren't providing the main source of income for a family, so you didn't have to pay them much.
And why women don't need to vote, right? You don't need to vote today either because, you know, the man will tell you how to vote. You don't really know these things because women aren't smart, right?
No.
They're all like, yes, we are dumber. No, you're not. The point of that was at the time, women had the right to vote because their husband, you'd influence your husband, right? They listen to you. Well, maybe some cases, mostly not probably, so you think about that one. Just a different time, but other questions for this group? What else do you guys like to share? Do you want to have them for a few more minutes?
What do you guys like the best?
Oh, thank you. Besides him. What are the,
people, how's the matter?
What stood out to you? Like, what was
yeah, what stood out? Maybe not like you bet. What stood out? What are you going to take from this today?
What can we do better?
What can we do better? Yeah, that's a great question.
Any y'all?
You didn't have a favorite oral history?
Here's one here. We got one. Yes, another engaged student. Yes, I love her. She was. Powerful speech about how badly people are treated in the turn of the century. Other things that you thought would be, yes, sir. So you learned a lot from it. Thank you, sir. I think we're going to lose our energy now because we only have 2 more. Oh, thank you.
Popcorn. I'll be back.